Right now, I am obsessed with two songs, Every Little Move and Chocolate from a musical that I really want to know about, String by Adam Gwom. But he's also got a brand new album, which is really why we're here. But I figured I'd get what I want to know out first. What happened to String?
String is a show we premiered out at a wonderful theater in Seattle called the Village Theater. This was a few years ago, I want to say maybe 2018. And we had an incredible run there, and it hasn't made its way to New York yet, but it's popped up in a number of smaller theaters and universities around the country. So I'm hopeful that one day it'll reach an even wider audience than it has already.
Does New York know about this show?
It's been sort of shopped around here, and little pockets of interest keep sort of bubbling up every now and then, but nothing has quite stuck in New York yet. So we'll keep trying.
No, I'm serious. The reason I listened to the first one was because I know Margot Seibert.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Katie. So I wanted to hear them. And then I knew Connor Ryan. So I'm like,
oh, fantastic. You know everybody.
Not always. But they're so amazing in the sense that it might be hard to sing them separately because there's all those integral voices in. And I'm like, how do you do this? Because no, I'm serious. I really love this show.
Oh, thank you. I was very, very inspired by my collaborator on the project, the book writer, who's a wonderful playwright named Sarah Hammond. And the idea for this show came about because Sarah, as a very young child, was obsessed with Greek mythology and had this, illustrated book of Greek myths. And the musical String focuses on the characters of the three fates. And Sarah had always felt like the three fates, popped up as made cameos in other gods' stories, but never really had a story of their own. And she really wanted to give the fates their own kind of myth. And so that's where the idea of String came from. And I think why I had so much fun writing, all of those harmonies and those intertwined vocals, because at the heart of it are these three sisters who are very separate in our show, have very distinct and separate personalities, but also, both literally and metaphorically weave everything together to sort of make up the tapestry of humankind. So it was very fun to translate that into music.
Well, knowing the fact that we've got I can't speak anymore. Hades Town playing right now, which has got the three fates.
That's true.
It makes sense to me that String would now be very appropriate. Plus the fact that doesn't it all take place in one office building?
It does, yeah.
So it's kind of like being trapped for COVID.
Yeah, that is true.
So I kind of saw the correlation between these two and thinking, oh, this show is really appropriate now.
All right, maybe the time is right. I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I think so. Now tell us about your new album.
Yes, so this is an album, it's called 16 Stories, and I'm just one of 16 composers that have new songs premiering on this album. And it was the brainchild of a symphony orchestra in Australia, of all things, who I was connected to through a guy named Michael Kirker.
I know Michael Kirker.
He's a wonderful champion of new voices in musical theater. And so he connected me and a number of other writers with this symphony orchestra in Australia who had this idea to put together an album where they'd take new musical theater songs that had never been recorded, orchestrate them for a full symphony orchestra, and then kind of open the gates to for singers from all over the world to apply and sort of audition to sing these songs. So because of that, it was sort of a multi-year process in the making. But that's exactly what they did. They took all of these songs, including one of mine, and fully orchestrated it for the entire symphony, who played it. And then they held this like worldwide sort of open contest to find the singers to sing these songs. And for my song, there's a wonderful woman named Anne Gasco who happens to be Australian as well. So it really was this very cool international effort to make it happen.
Now, my first question, how much role did you get to play in the orchestrations?
I was not really involved in the orchestration at all. It really was done almost entirely by the music director of the orchestra. So I kind of heard a pass at it when they were first going to record it, but that and was sort of like, oh wow, here's the orchestration, fantastic. So yeah, it really the ball was really in the symphony's court, which was it's a unique collaboration as far as musical theater tends to go, but I found it to be really exciting. It's so rare that we get the opportunity to hear new musical theater songs so fully orchestrated, and so that process was just really exciting.
What is your song about?
My song is actually a song that was cut from a musical of mine, not String, but another musical of mine called Scotland, PA.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of the first songs that was written when I started working on the project. And as these things often go, a lot of times the first songs that you write don't end up fitting into the show that you wind up with when you complete your writing process. So it's a song for this show, Scotland, PA. It was an adaptation of a
I know the
film.
show. I love the show.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And the film and the musical were or are a riff on the Scottish play Macbeth, but set in a burger shop in rural Pennsylvania in the 1970s. And so the song that is on this album was a song that was originally for the character of Pat, who's sort of the Lady Macbeth character.
Oh, yeah.
And it was her. There's a moment in the show, or that was in the show, that was kind of her like tipping point moment where she and her husband Mac have worked at this sort of crappy burger joint since they graduated from high school, and it's now 10 years later, and she starts to get the itch for more. She gets bitten by that ambition bug that's so prevalent in the Shakespeare play. So this song originally was that sort of tipping point moment for her, which ultimately sort of we reconceived that element of the show once we were further along in drafts, but this was an initial stab at a song for her character.
I have to apologize for the phone going off.
Oh no, it's all right. Life is happening.
No, it never fails. If I have something to do, somebody calls me, of course.
Exactly.
And I thought it was still off from last night, so I'm sorry.
No worries.
This is my favorite question to ask musicians.
Yeah.
If you had to choose a song or a cycle of songs to describe who Adam Gwom is, what are they?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I feel like it would have to be a combination of things, because I feel like everyone, I feel like everyone is sort of like a combination of other different influences. I would say the two biggest influences that come to my mind right away are the songwriter Tori Amos. She's from Baltimore, Maryland, like I am, and we actually went to the same music school. And so I was always very enamored with her. She's a piano player. I'm a piano player. I thought when I discovered her music when I was a teenager, I had been studying classical piano, and she just sort of made piano playing cool in this way that I had never really heard before. And so I've just always love Tori Amos. I'm going to see her in concert next month, so I'm
Oh,
I'm still a Tori Amos fan.
No, I'm a Tori Amos fan. I love her.
Oh, amazing. She's playing in Brooklyn next month at the King's
Wow.
Theater. I'm very excited to see her. So she comes to mind. And then
what song? What song of hers?
The first song that I ever discovered of hers was a song called Winter.
Yes.
And I discovered it because I was in high school and I was doing like a summer musical theater camp kind of thing. And because I played piano, people would always bring me their songs to play through, like when they needed to practice their songs. And someone put the song Winter in front of me at the piano and was like, hey, I want to sing this. Can you play through it? And I was like, oh, sure. I don't know what this is. Like, I'll try to sight read it. And as I was playing it, I was like, what is this music? It's so beautiful. And the piano part is so great. So the Tori Amos song Winter was the song that I discovered her through. And the other big influence, the thing that really made me want to be a musical theater writer specifically, was Audra McDonald's very first album, which sort of championed all these writers who were brand new at the time, like Jason Robert Brown and Michael John LaChiusa and Adam Gettle. Right. And again, it was just this like whole new sound and whole new approach to musical theater that I found really exciting. It just made me think about musicals and what they could be in a whole new way. So I feel like that album is what really got me hooked on writing musicals.
What song spoke to you the most on that one?
Oh gosh. There are so many. I honestly think of that album as like a whole, because it was so, I would just like listen to the whole thing on repeat. I remember there was a song on there, I think from Parade, if I'm remembering correctly. Because it was.
I don't know this man. You don't know this man.
Yeah. And that one really struck me because it was before this album came out, before Parade had come out. So it was sort of like a first look at this new Jason Robert Brown show. And I remember being very moved by that song on it. But everything on that album is so great. That song Tom, the Michael John LaChiusa song, I found that very striking. Just the whole thing, it got me.
What kind of musical would you like to write that you have not written yet?
That is a really great question. I think I'd like to write a sort of like big Broadway extravaganza. I feel like all of my musicals have been like relatively intimate kinds of shows, but I love going to see big Broadway extravaganzas. So I'd like to try my hand at that one of these days.
So that's true. Your shows are very intimate, very cult.
Yes, yeah, I like that word.
I'm sorry, but they are. But I like cults, so I'm like,
yeah, no, so do I.
I find my way to them. Who inspires you now? Like, what new composers now are you so happy to be in their realm?
Yeah. Gosh, again, there are like so many. It's really hard to choose. I think it's something really, there's something really amazing about being a part of the musical theater community, which is quite small, and there are like so many people that you are sort of become friends with and get to know their music who haven't quite bubbled up into the public consciousness yet. I will say I haven't seen her show yet, but I know a bunch of her music and have a friend who's writing a musical with her. And I just find her musical really beautiful. Is a composer named Heather Christian. She has a show at Ars Nova right now, which I haven't seen yet.
Oh, I've heard I have to see this.
Yeah, her music is just so beautiful and so unusual. And again, I haven't seen this new show, but I have
it's Oratorio for Living Things, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
I just heard about it last night, actually. Somehow it went off my radar, and I've heard it's incredibly ethereal.
Yeah, I have a lyricist friend who is working on a show with her, and I've heard some of the songs that they've written together. And it sounds like it's a similar sort of thing. Like it's very just like ethereal, beautiful, unusual kind of music, which I find very moving.
To me, it sounds like it might be like Renaissance by Carmel Dean.
Oh yes, yeah.
Anything like that, I'm gonna go. I want to see this
so
ASAP.
beautiful. Yeah,
I love that show.
Yeah, same here.
You know, I fall into the quirky. Well, but it's not really quirky. It's just the stuff that people haven't discovered yet, and then it becomes popular years later.
Exactly. Yeah.
What else are you working on right now?
I am on at the sort of early stages of a bunch of new commissions, which I was very lucky to receive over the past couple of years of shutdown. A lot of the theaters that I have associations with amazingly sort of took the money that they had slated to put toward production during the shutdown and put it toward commissioning new shows to hopefully produce, once they're back. So the good thing is I have all these projects that I'm working on. The bad news is they're all at the very early stages of the writing, which is my least favorite part of the process. So before the pandemic, I was pretty good about having a project, one's right at the beginning, one's sort of in the middle, one's getting towards the end. So I could like switch around and not feel like stuck in the agonizing place of having to create from scratch. But that's where I am right now. I'm working on a new piece for The Roundabout, who are the ones who produced Scotland, PA. I'm working on a new piece for the Keane Company, which is a fantastic off-Broadway company who did a revival of my show Ordinary Days a few years ago.
Which was wonderful, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It was so moving.
And working on a show for South Coast Repertory out in California.
I know them well. That was actually where I got my equity card.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. They've produced a number of my shows. I love it out there. So I've just got to like write this other one. So hopefully I can be back out there again soon. So working on those things. And we're actually we had finished the run of Scotland, PA at Roundabout right before the shutdown hit, and had been working with a commercial producer and had some stuff coming up that obviously got canceled when everything shut down. So we're finally getting back to that and working with that producer again. So hopefully diving back into Scotland, PA again at some point soon as well.
Are there any singers? I know you've worked with some great ones. Are there any singers that you would love to work with, that you would love to hear sing your music?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I love Ben Platt's voice. I just think he has an amazing voice, and I was such a big fan of his performance in Dear Evan Hansen. So he would definitely be on the list. And I loved I saw not too long ago, actually, I saw the West Side Story movie finally. And the young woman who played Maria, I just thought was amazing. I loved her voice. And I love bringing sopranos back into the conversation is always very exciting. And I thought she had such a unique, young, fresh soprano that actually felt like it communicated in a contemporary way. So I would put her on the list as well.
Yeah, she was great. I liked her a lot.
Yeah.
And last question, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like our audiences to know about you?
Oh gosh. What can I say? This feels like a pretty comprehensive interview. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I guess check out this new album, 16 Stories, and if you know people who run theaters in New York, tell them about String. We're gonna make it happen.
No, seriously, I've told people about this show. I'm like, you have to check this out. People normally listen to me when I talk about musicals because they know that I know my stuff.
Oh, nice.
I've loved musicals since the time I could hear them. Yeah, very young. My first Tony Award was underneath my parents' couch, and it was the year, it was the year that Hallelujah Baby won.
All right.
And I came underneath the couch singing the song. And I was like 5. And to this day, I can still do it.
That's amazing.
So, I kind of walk into shows, and if I love your music, I never can sit still during a show because it's almost like my body is memorizing the music.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And so I come out knowing a lot of the music.
I love that.
Yeah, like if you ever see me in a theater, you'll see my fingers tapping, or you'll see me moving in a certain way. Literally, I'm memorizing.
That's like amazing.
I'm like a computer. But I look forward to this album. When does it come out?
It's out now.
It's out.
At least digitally, it's out. So if you go to the Broadway Records website, I think there's a link where you can get it on all the like streaming places and download sites.
Well, I'm so grateful to have interviewed you. Like I said.
Oh, thank you.
I really wanted to after hearing these songs.
I really appreciate it.
No, I mean it. Seriously, thank you.